So what does Barack Obama do? Well, in the first place, he has none of the authority that Roosevelt had because there are no fixed exchange rates anymore. The dollar goes up and down on its own. The markets decide. A lot of this authority has been ceded away. So the answer to your question is, well, the question was basically, does Obama have a greater or lesser problem dealing with the financial system than Roosevelt did? And the answer is, it's easier in certain respects. Main Street banks are not going under. Don't worry, you're not going to have to run down and get your deposits. But because international finance has become so globalized, if the U.S. bails out big banks in the United States, it will inevitably bail out a lot of foreign shareholders of those banks. And critics of the Obama administration will be able to say, why are you spending American money to bail out Germans and Chinese and Japanese investors? I thought this money was for the United States. And there's no good answer to that, because if you're going to bail out the banks, you're going to bail out pretty much everybody involved. So here's again. I wish I could say that history says this is the way to go. But history says maybe that way, maybe that way. Somebody had a question? Yes, in the back end.
Isn't that already happening, though, with the backlash on AIG? A lot of the money that's gone to AIG is going to international banks.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, though, that the outcry against the AIG bailout at the moment is less about international banks than it's about the executives who are getting these million-dollar bonuses. And so the politics of all of this is somewhat unpredictable. Until quite recently, the bankers were getting these big salaries, and when they say you get these bonuses, it's a little bit misleading. It's like, okay, the bonus is for good behavior, good performance. But in much of the financial industry, the bonus, as it's called, is really in lieu of salary. So the salary is relatively small, and you get your money all at the end. So it looks like a bonus. So, I mean, I don't know if bankers should be paid $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year or $2 million a year. But that's kind of the way the game is played. It's very interesting. I have a friend in Austin who teaches at the University of Texas Law School. His name's Sanford Levinson, and he's a very distinguished professor of constitutional law. And I asked him whether there was any way the government could get back these bonuses. And he said, well, you could just pass a tax bill that taxed them at 90%. And I said, is that really constitutional? Can you write a tax bill that targets a particular company? And he said, yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't. Now, there are differing opinions. And so some people are reading that bar on bills of attainder. These are sort of private bills that declare particular actions to be crime, focused on individuals, as saying that this would prohibit it. So it remains an open question. But it is interesting to me that the outcry is much more against these perceived fat cat bankers, at least at the moment, than against the foreigners. Maybe it's because it's easier to personify the individuals who are gaining this advantage. One of the things Franklin Roosevelt understood, and this is not necessarily a compliment to either Roosevelt or the American political system, that the most effective presidents are the ones who most successfully identify and vilify their enemies. Andrew Jackson did it. Andrew Jackson targeted the Bank of the United States. When I said that these are the most successful leaders, sometimes their policies are disasters for the country. When Andrew Jackson took down the Bank of the United States, it was a victory for American democracy. The American people took control of the money system in the United States. It was a disaster for the American economy, because the Bank of the United States was the equivalent of the Federal Reserve, and the country needed something like that. And the economy spun out of control. So presidents, if they can identify individuals, then they can mobilize popular anger against these individuals. And for better or worse, I would say maybe at least partly for worse, individuals, ordinary people, often respond better. They act more out of anger than out of love or attraction. If you get people angry, then you can get them on your side if they can focus their anger at somebody else. So, with Abraham Lincoln, it was the Confederacy. With Theodore Roosevelt, it's what he called the malefactors of great wealth. With Franklin Roosevelt, it was the economic royalists, as he called them, in the election of 1936. Until now, Barack Obama has preached kind of the big tent. We're all in this together. It's going to unite. And that was the theme, the slogan of the campaign. Well, that's fine for a campaign, because in a campaign, you want to appear all things to all people. And the other slogan was, yes, we can. Well, that's when you're running for office. When you're governing, the operative phrase is, no, you can't. Because when you govern, you have to choose. You can't say everybody can have everything. You have to say, yes, you get something and you don't. And that's when it becomes very tempting for a president to say, those are the bad people over there. Those are the ones who got us into this mess. And when Barack Obama talks about how the tax increases are only going to hit the top 5%, the people who make over $250,000 a year, it gets close to, it's starting to sound like what Franklin Roosevelt did unabashedly, and that was essentially to wage class warfare. To say it's the many, the good many of us, against those evil or short-sighted or selfish few. And it's a formula for, what should we say, short-term political success. But it doesn't do a whole lot for the general tone of American politics. So it will be interesting to me as a student of history, maybe a bit disturbing as a participant in all this, I'm a citizen as well, to see whether Barack Obama goes in that direction or not. Do we need to call it quits?
Let's call it quits.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Never has a speaker deserved that water at the end. Looking at my watch. As a token of appreciation for a very spirited, insightful talk, I'd like to give Bill Brands a Ralph Hauenstein tote bag.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fabulous.
And a great audience. We knew you'd be spellbound, and we all have been. Bill, you were fabulous as ever. We've learned a lot and have a lot to think about. You'll have a chance to talk with Bill out in the lobby and to also have him autograph a copy of one of his books. We want to thank you for coming, and I want to just do a brief commercial for upcoming programs. This is a really busy time coming up for the Library and Museum. Program on the future of the press in this changing economy coming up on March 26th. It's organized by the National Press Club, and we've got flyers for that out in the lobby. April 8th is Betty Ford's 91st birthday, and we're open free admission and birthday cake for the first 750 people who come. So don't miss out on that. And right following that, on April 14th, we're having John Swartzos, who is the director of the Betty Ford Center out in California, coming. We had him last year at the library. He's a wonderful person. So if you're interested in issues about the Betty Ford Center and the treatment for substance abuse of various kinds, John is a real expert in the field, and we urge you to come. So join us out in the lobby for a reception. The White House in miniature is open upstairs, and we thank you for coming.